guys, and welcome to JP Tutorials. So today we're going to look at how to make a beat in 5 minutes. There's a couple of things that I'm going to explain before we get into it, just so you guys have a good understanding of what you need in order to make this work. So the first thing that I've done is that I've just selected some instruments which I feel are necessary in order to make a complete beat. Now don't get me wrong, every beat has its elements which are there, some which are not. In this case, I'm just going to go for what I feel are the major things in a beat and the major areas. So I've got the drums, I've got keys, which is piano in this case. I've got a synthesizer, a lead instrument of sorts, and bass. Now, again, to make this work, just select something that you're familiar with. I haven't selected the best sounds on this occasion because the point is not to refine on this procedure. The point is just to get a vibe down, okay? Now, often with vibe, I will mention that sometimes we do things which are just to get things going. You know, you might end up substituting everything but, you know, for example, say the piano line, because that's all that's working. But again, if we can develop a song off the piano line, then so be it. The point of this is to give you the guys the idea of how to just vibe in 5 minutes, all right? Because it really can be that simple. And oftentimes if you can't find that initial vibe, then finding your whole project can be quite lengthy at times, okay? So what I will note is that I am going to play all of this stuff in myself. You, by all means, you don't necessarily have to if you don't know how, but I do recommend it because, again, once it comes from you, it means that it's all yours, and it's so much more interchangeable, okay? So after noting down the instruments, the second thing I'll note down is that I am going to start using this around a loop. Okay, the reason why I'm going to use it around a loop is because for the sake of 5 minutes, I want to potentially make the biggest part of the song, which will include all of these things, and then perhaps if we have time at the end, we'll briefly arrange it so we're substituting bits in and out. But for now, we're not looking at that. You'll hear the bits as we go, obviously, but the point is that we just get a vibe down, okay? So say, for example, an artist has just walked in your studio and they say, hey, I've got this great idea, can we work on it? This is now how we're going to start to sort of piece this together. So if we take a look at the time, 12:43, hopefully we'll be done within 5 minutes, but perhaps allow me an extra minute or so I can explain things as we go. Okay, so I'm just going to crack on, start with the drums. I've set the BPM at 90 because for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to stick to my comfort zone, and that tends to be a bit more hip hop stuff. So I will make it as musical as possible though, but for the sake of for the sake of the tutorial, we're going to go with some hip hop. So obviously you won't see me playing in, but you can hear. If I tap, you can hear exactly what's going on. All right, so again, 12:44, let's get it cracking. All right, so I'm just gonna vibe anything. Okay, cool. So something that I will make note of my workflow, and you'll notice that the first kick drum didn't play there. Sometimes it doesn't capture on the loop. Something I'll note of my workflow is that what I like to do, particularly with my drums, as I put them in, is I like to bounce them out as I go. So I'm going to call that a kick. It just makes my workflow a little bit easier because I don't necessarily like to stack the synths in terms of just keep overloading the CPU. So I like to sort of separate it at this stage, you know, and again, I separate it for the sake of mix, all right? Because you want to ideally keep, you know, as many elements possible separate, all right? So yeah, we're about a minute in. Let's just try and keep this going. So again, I'm just going to vibe some hi-hats, find something. I've got a couple of options there. So that sounds alright, although we've got something going wrong with the kick drum. However, let's just get these hats out very quickly. Bounce that. That's the swing I've put on it. It's my bad. Just bounce that. Just like that. That's fine. Bounce. Hats. Okay, and because of the swing, we will redo the kick drum, which is fine. Okay, cool. And as I said before, notice how the first one doesn't play sometimes. Just get it close and then press the quantize. always quantize it. For the sake of speed, quantize is really good, but know what quantize that you're using as well. That's the other thing I'd say, because obviously they do affect the swing, and the swing is very, very important when it comes to putting, your vibe. No, don't necessarily just go with 16 by 16 because it's not always the best one. Okay, cool. So perhaps if we get more time at the end, I'll add a bit more to the drums. But for now, let's add some piano. So I'm just going to slide over to the right. My piano is waiting. And I'm going to put down some very simple but perhaps lovely chords. We'll see. A very simple pattern. Let's give it a go. Okay, that's kind of cool. Again, simple. When it comes to chords, you don't always have to start with chords. You could start with a lead, for example, but the reason why I start with chords is oftentimes you get so many more options when you do put chords down. Now, there is no rule to how many chords you should put down in terms of a song, but I personally like to put something that gives, it kind of keeps the song moving. Otherwise, if you find that yourself with one chord or just two, sometimes, not always the case, it can feel like the whole song is a bit stagnant and that it's not moving anywhere. Some people address this by changing the chords in the bridge and stuff, but in my case, for now, I'm just going to stick to the 3. And as you guys probably would have noticed, I just added that little note at the end there, which kind of leads back into the set of chords again. Okay, so just again hit the quantize, make sure it's tight. Okay, pretty straightforward. Now, what I'm going to do in this instance is I selected a synth earlier, which I felt was pretty good for holding chords. So if I just substitute the piano and see how the synth sounds. It's not bad, it's a little bit low. I will keep the piano for now, but perhaps we can use the synth for the chorus part. But again, I did say that we're building this whole thing up to be sort of the chorus section, if you like, and then we'll substitute bits in and out. So for now it can work, I think. Yeah, those two kind of work together. And as you can probably tell, the piano does sound a little bit higher in its octave. Even though they're playing the same thing, you can just hear the piano stand out a little bit. So for the sake of keeping it moving, now what I'm going to do, bass-wise, you can do a lot, okay? There's a lot of options, and there always will be, all right? The first thing that most people run to is the sub. And the sub is awesome because you can just stick to the root notes, all right? You don't have to be crazy good at, bass runs or anything like that. So a sub is always a safe place to go. And if you're ever in doubt about what the root note is, just find where you played the chord, find where the movements are on the lowest part of the note, okay? That's not the rule set in stone, but it's kind of the best way I can explain it, particularly in our sort of 5-minute window here. So just try and find the chords, the root note of each chord. So I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll highlight the piano here, and I'll keep the bass highlighted as well, and I'll just play the piano and I'll play the bass at the same time. So that is my set of notes for the bass root notes. Just 3 notes. And in fact, those are chromatic, they run up in order. Okay, so I'm just going to try. I'm going to lay that down, and if I can add anything in addition to it, then I perhaps will. All right, but again, I don't want to put any pressure on anyone. It's just to get a vibe. All right. Yeah, that was kind of cool. Again, let's run that. Quantize that. Hear how that actually sounds just with the drums. That'll do. Okay, cool. So, in fact, what I'll do very, very quickly, forgive me, I'll quickly take a sidestep, is I'll show you how I would make the sub bass work around this if we were going to go ahead and do the sub bass. So this is just a preset that I've got for a sub bass. And I'll show you, again, it would just simply be to hold the root notes in this case. Yeah, very, very straightforward. Let's move that there, let's quantize. Move that back. Okay. So that would be our sub. Okay. Now again, the sub works very, very well when you mix it. All right. So just keep that in mind. What I sometimes like to do with my subs, and you can do this via side chaining. You set up a compressor and do a side chain. However, this awesome plugin called Kickstart allows you to kind of create the same sort of vibe. So with most of my subs, as you can tell, what I tend to do is I tend to put a little bit of a side chain effect on it, so it gives it that sort of wobble feel. Okay, so that's now, lastly, in the last few minutes that we have, let's just add a lead line to this. Now, again, lead lines are kind of like what vocalists do in terms of adding melodies to your songs. So we're kind of adding a melody in that regard. However, we're also considering that there may be a vocalist who wants to add something to this. This is just something that gives them something more to work with, all right? And oftentimes something exists in the chorus, and you kind of place lead lines here and there throughout your song just to add dynamic and stuff. So let's just, I'm just gonna have a work around with some ideas, okay? I'm going to give that a go. Okay, and that's my lead. So now, just to make that twice as cool, I'm going to copy it to the octave above. And that's pretty much how you make a beat in 5 minutes, guys.